Yeah, so I guess I come at it originally from the entrepreneurial perspective, and actually most of my career was in the US, and sort of my biggest company that I've done was in New York. That was the internet payment company. And I've had 3 exits, but my exits have not been very big. The biggest one was a $25 million exit. That's what you get for the whole company, including what investors need to get, et cetera, et cetera. But what I have experienced in my career was that it is possible to kind of exit early rather than aim for a home run, which is what a lot of VCs kind of encourage companies to do. And that model has become more and more valid as things have been becoming more difficult to, for example, exit in NASDAQ, go public in NASDAQ, or have a lot of sort of billion-dollar acquisitions. There are a lot of companies that get acquired almost every week at the sort of medium-sized valuations of, call it anywhere between $20 and $70 million. So having experienced that myself, I decided to start a venture fund that works very different from other funds. It actually invests, it's a relatively small amount of money, up to about 2 million euros, to get a company from what is typically a Series A stage to immediately to exit. So we don't take a company through Series B, C, D, etc., but we actually try to take a company from that Series A stage all the way to an acquisition, where the acquisition valuation is not hundreds of millions of dollars or euros, but rather, like I said, tens of millions. The way we do that is by having very close relationships with these strategic acquirers. There are actually 50 on our list that we keep in close contact with. We kind of keep a map of where they're trying to go strategically. Sometimes they share the information, sometimes they share some of the information, but we do have that map, and then we go out and try to find companies that address whatever strategic needs the acquirers have. We try to hold companies for only about a year or a year and a half, and so we try to get them to that point where they can be acquired and not really take them through the long chasm of getting to significant market share or significant revenues. For the acquirers, it works out quite well because they're able to get their hands on really cool technology and good products and good teams, most importantly, that can grow the business within the acquirer. The entrepreneurs are happy because they get access to a good brand, distribution networks, existing customers. So it ends up being a win sort of all around. We had our first closing as a fund only 6-7 months ago. We're doing our first investment now. Our focus is Europe and Israel because that's where we can find sort of good opportunities and good prices that are not typically so apparent in Silicon Valley. Most of our acquirers are in Silicon Valley. We do a lot of the sort of back and forth across the Atlantic, and that's pretty much our philosophy and experience with investments and acquisitions.
Thank you very much. So we heard a perspective from an acquirer, a company that acquires startups, and somebody who funds those startups with the objective of being acquired. So it seems like there's only trade sale exits in this world. But I wanted to ask Roberto Bonanzinga, since Roberto has worked on both sides of the Atlantic and maybe has perspective on that, what he can tell us about IPO markets. Do they exist? Are they there? Those markets for hacking?
Yeah, actually, I have some perspectives I'd like to share with you all. And I hope all the Americans and non-Italian people around the virtual table of Silicon Valley in Europe and Italy will forgive me, but I actually do believe the world of startups is moving and is becoming Italian. What do I mean with that? It's becoming very chaotic. I give you some examples, just 3 examples of 3 different companies with whom we have been involved. Yux. Yux is a company in Italy. It's a startup based in Italy, majority of their business in the United States. I'll give you a second example. A company called PageFlex, that is actually an investment of us, founded in Germany by a guy in Berlin, another guy in India, and another guy in Australia, and we decided to move the company to San Francisco. So actually today the company is based in San Francisco. I'll give you a third example. of a company called Bibo, that is a social media platform with more than 30 million users. The company started in San Francisco, but 80% of the users, or big percentage of the users, were actually in Europe. So we actually moved the company, or significant amount of the people today are based in Europe. So what I'm trying to say, the joke I was making, the startup world is becoming Italian, it's really it's not moving in a linear fashion. It's moving like when you go around in the streets of Milan and Rome. It's like when Italian drivers, right? Everything is a bit more fluid. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. It's fluid, for the first time we're seeing that in the way how companies get started, but for sure we are seeing that in the way our company exits. If you look at the IPO market, there is something amazing that is happening. Actually, there are more IPO exits, percentage-wise, happening in Europe than in the US. I think there was a couple of days ago an incredible article in the Financial Times. New York is catching up, in the meaning that for the first time this year, maybe there will be more money raised in New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ compared to London Stock Exchange and AIM. I thought I was dreaming. I thought, I had some drugs the night before. 10 years ago, this was inconceivable. So I guess what is happening is, the world is becoming more fluid, and for sure in the IPO market, we are seeing that Europe is becoming very significant. Now, if you look in percentage of exits, just to give you an idea, the guys from Prof produce some interesting numbers. In the US, 5% of the exits in the last 18 years are IPOs. In Europe, 16%. And obviously, some cases is because Europe has been done better from an economic standpoint. In some other cases, because the US has been done particularly bad from a regulation standpoint. I don't think it matters why, but definitely there is a process of rebalancing. So to close, what I want to say is, several years ago, a process to IPO exit was no doubts at some point in the life cycle of the company, you have to move the company to the US. This is not the case anymore. Actually, I see many people from the US coming to Europe to take advantage of it. And I think it's a quite interesting perspective about how the market is becoming more fluid, more global, I guess.
Thank you very much. So we've been trying to go through an exponential process of startup creation and value creation and acquisition and what happens when a company then has to catch out of paperwork. So I want to go full circle and finally answering the last question to Luigi Orsi Carbone. I would like to bring up his collaboration with Silicon Valley and with First Generation Network to create a business plan competition that is just being launched. So Luigi, why don't you tell us a little bit more about this business plan competition and what you plan to accomplish with that?
Certainly. Mind the Bridge, which is the name of this business plan competition, aims